How you do your exercises in your session is as important as the exercises you choose. And without a great warm-up, your body won't be in a position to put 100% effort and intensity into every exercise you do. Even worse, your risk of injury increases. So getting your warm-up right is essential. But why only use it as a warm-up if you can also use it to make progress? This is exactly what I'll help you do by the end of this video. Welcome to the 5th episode of my football performance training guide. I'm Archie Watts, a football performance specialist and college soccer player. And in this series, I'll tell you everything you need to know about training the physical side of your game. The basic principle that your warm-up's gonna follow is the ramp principle. This is a 4-step warm-up to get you prepared and ready to perform at your best. It has 4 steps: raise, activate, mobilize, and potentiate. Let's break down each section to make sure you get the most out of every part. First is raise. This is the part of your warm-up where you're gonna raise your heart rate and body temperature. Now here, it's easy to just choose a really basic cardio exercise, like running, cycling, or rowing. And while these choices are fine, as a footballer, none of these exercises are gonna have any real long-term benefit to you. Yes, if you took any of them to the extreme, then you would get a great cardio benefit, but that's not the goal here. The goal is simply to warm up your body, which is why whenever possible, I recommend my footballers to use jump rope as a warm-up. This is because it's a great extensive plyometric exercise to build up some volume and drive tissue adaptation. But regardless of whatever exercise you choose here, do around 5 minutes to get your heart rate and body temperature up. Next is activate. Here you'll activate any specific muscles that you're going to use in your session. A great example here for the upper body is lying IYTs, and for the lower body, stuff like skips and shuffles. Next is mobilize. Here you're going to move your body through its full range of motion, but that doesn't mean to hold a static stretch. In fact, this is one of the biggest mistakes that footballers make at this part in their warm-up. Instead, what you want to do here is try and actively move your body through a full range of motion by choosing dynamic stretches, and even better, dynamic stretches that will work as many joints as possible through their full range of motion. One exercise I always love to use here is a world's greatest stretch variation, and keeping these stretches active here also helps to build upon that activate part of the warm-up. And the final part of your warm-up is potentiate. Here you're going to build up the intensity of specific movement patterns that you're going to use in your session. For example, if a back squat was your main exercise here, then you may begin to build up the weight and intensity of your back squats. Or if you're doing some work on the field, maybe you can work through some A skips, B skips, and C skips. Again, the key part here is trying to look for exercises where you're also going to get some long-term benefit. So with your skips that we just mentioned, these are also going to be great for working on your sprinting mechanics. But if, for example, you're building up the intensity of a back squat, these reps are likely going to be less beneficial for you. So to still try and get the most out of this part of your session, make the concentric portion of these reps as fast as possible to build some speed with lighter weights, and also consider supersetting here with some lower intensity plyometrics. Great examples are extensive plyometrics like pogos, or some deep range of motion plyometrics like alternating split squat jumps. Now that you have a basic overview of your warm-up, I'm going to give you a few final factors to consider to make sure you get the most out of your warm-up while making your warm-up as effective as possible. The first is look for the minimal effective dose. One common mistake that I see, and a mistake that I made myself, is not finding the right balance between too little or too much. Now, too little is probably much more common. People just turning up to the gym and going straight into their first exercise with very minimal warm-up. But you can also do too much in your warm-up, making it too long, too tiring, and eventually taking away from the most important part of your session. So look for the minimal effective dose, something that gets your heart rate up, moves your body for a full range of motion, and still leaves you ready to perform at your best for the first exercise of your main session. The second factor is to consider your age and your training intensity. If you're a younger footballer that hasn't been training in the gym for so long, then the amount of force that you're going to be putting into your movements is much lower than someone that's older and is producing much more force in their sessions. This person's going to require a much longer warm-up than someone that's relatively new to the gym. And finally, consider the time of day and the type of session you're doing. If you're doing an intense session early in the morning in cold weather, you're likely going to need a much longer warm-up than if you're doing a less intense session later in the day in warm weather. So consider all factors when pulling your warm-up warm-up together. But now that you've done your warm-up and you're ready to go into the main part of your session, you need to know exactly how to train to achieve your training goal. And in the next episodes of the Football Performance Training Guide, we're going to go over exactly how to train for every training goal, starting next time with speed. So hit subscribe to make sure you catch the next video. But until then, enjoy your warm-ups and enjoy your training.